Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello everybody and welcome back to another edition of the Daily Ipswich here on the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only podcast where you can get your daily fix of all things Ipswich Town. We are coming off an unfortunate result at Portman Road this past weekend, which Rob and Richard, I should say, looked back on Monday. So we appreciate them taking one for the team with that result because it was not the easiest of scores to look back on. Myself and James were on today's show to slightly look back at that game with our give our quick takes on it, as well as looking forward to Wednesday night's clash at Old Trafford against Manchester United. So as I said, I'm joined once again by James Bennett. How are you doing, James?
Yeah, good, thank you, mate. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. And like I said, I was kind of a bit happy we didn't have to look back in too much depth, I should say, on Saturday's game against Tottenham. Thanks to Richard and Rob for doing that. But I'll just quickly get your thoughts. I think Richard and Rob both said, and I tend to agree, like, we started really well. I don't know if you managed to catch the whole game. We started really well. And then 4-1 doesn't necessarily reflect the overall scoreline, considering the few mistakes and the many chances we had as well. Albeit I think it was 17 shots, as Rob pointed out. And obviously, with Wolves' win, it does put us in a bit much harder situation, but it's a game-by-game basis. Hopefully, Wednesday night can be a slight turnaround from us, and if Wolves can do something. But just thoughts on the result, really?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to agree. I don't think 4-1 quite reflected it. But, you know, this is the Premier League. If you don't take the chances that you get and you make these mistakes, you're going to get punished, and it's exactly what happened. But yeah, we started the game well, and then 2 quick goals. And, I mean, the first half itself was not the worst. I mean, it was a good goal by Hutch. It was a good goal. He played all right as well. But the second half, we just didn't seem to, I don't know, show enough, I don't think. And it was just disappointing to see. And then, yeah, obviously Wolves winning as well. I didn't see that one coming. North London did us no favours over the weekend.
Yeah, they really didn't today. But I think just looking at the team, like I said, I think in the second half, it was really kind of only Wolfie's chance, which I'm sure, like yourself and many other Town fans, did get up and celebrate, because my immediate reaction was, oh my God, I'm so happy for him that he scored a Premier League goal, but then it was immediately taken off him and he was miles offside. But yeah, really not much to go from in the second there. I think just the best part of the game for us, I think, was that first 5-6 minutes where we had so many chances. Delap hit the woodwork. He could have got a hat-trick in the first 6, couldn't he? Like, it really does show, doesn't it? Like, taking your chances, it's cliche to say, but it really is the fact, isn't it? And we just haven't done that as much this season as other clubs. Yes, Liam Delap has got a lot of goals for us, and God knows where we would be without him. But even a player of that quality, it shows that even he can have a day where just nothing seems to go in.
Exactly, yeah. And unfortunately, that's what it's really going to come down to. And it doesn't help the fact that Cunha stayed at Wolves. I really thought he was going to leave, but the fact that he stayed, that's a boost in itself, because he's such a good player. He really is a good player. And we've got a player like that, like you say, a talisman like Delap, yeah, but you can't carry the whole team on your back every single game, and we need to find the goals from somewhere. We need to find somebody else who can finish as well. I think that was what was disappointing, really.
I think we may have had that in Enciso, but unfortunately seems to be out for a long time. Yeah. That knee injury is apparently what plagued him prior to coming to the club as well, so it seems to have reared its head again. Touched on Wolves there. I mean, we'll go into it now. We'll move past the Spurs game, but going into it now, obviously, Wolves won at Bournemouth. We are now 5 points behind rather than 2.
Yeah.
That may seem like nail in the coffin already, but for me, it's a game-by-game basis. Who knows? If Wednesday turns out well for us, doesn't for Wolves, it's only 2 points again. But yes, you said about Cunha there. I mean, when I saw it was 1-0 to Wolves in that game, I was like, I'll look at the score, but I know who scored this goal, and it obviously was him. It's just inevitable, isn't it? Like, it's you don't want to say like, oh, one-man team, and if he wasn't there, they'd be screwed. But I honestly think they would be. I know we can maybe make the same argument for us and Delap, but there's been bits of quality all over the field for us this season. I feel maybe it has depleted ever so slightly recently, but it's just kind of annoying that's where they are at, isn't it? But hopefully they can turn around. Where are you at now with, like, do you still have a positive, I think like me and you are maybe one of the positive pairings of this podcast. Like, where are you at with chance of survival now? I know, like, it may be a bit bleak, but, we're still in the Premier League, still fighting. We still got to play Wolves, still got to play Leicester. There's chances, isn't there?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. And not to sound too, like you've said it already, but not to be sort of too cliche, I guess, but it's the hope that kills you. And the fact that we're still playing good football at times, excuse me, does give you that hope. I mean, I feel like I've been quite positive throughout the whole season, to be fair, so far. I'm thinking, yeah, we're definitely going to stay up. I can absolutely see it. I think after this weekend, it's the first time that I'm genuinely really worried. Do you know what I mean? I know 5 points isn't too much, and there are chances there that we can turn this around, absolutely. So I've still got that little bit of hope, and that, again, yeah, obviously that's what kills you. So I'm still in more of the yes, we can absolutely do it, because I think we're a better team than Wolves. I think we play better football than them. So yeah, I think we absolutely can. Just fingers crossed, mate. Just every game is a cup final now. Every single one.
Yeah, that's again. I feel like we're speaking cliches on today's show, but it really is true, isn't it? I mean, I was looking. I haven't got the exact stats up here. I apologise, but one of the things I noticed on socials after the game on the weekend, because I think, like you and myself, like it's justified to think that this is obviously our like bleakest time of the season, considering the gap. Now we've always been in thereabouts within 3 points or a point or two, as it was with Wolves, but this is obviously where it's a 2-game gap now rather than a 1-game gap. But one of the encouraging stats I did see on the weekend, and obviously, it's a different. It's the southern point of the league compared to the northern point of the league, but in League One and League Two at this point, at League One of the Championship, sorry, I should say, at this point we weren't in the top 2 of League One of the Championship at this point of the season last year. I think we were like 5 or 6 behind Southampton and Leicester, and then in League One I think it was Plymouth and Wednesday before Wednesday's capitulation. So obviously you do have to rely on other teams, which is you never want to be in that case, but. It does show that like the season isn't over till it's over. And yeah, there's a few more games in the Championship and League One, but there's still plenty of time to turn it around. And I really hope we can do that. Before we go to the final first break today, before we go to the first break, just any individuals you want to point out from the weekend, or not necessarily from the weekend, but just the past few games in terms of dip in form. I think one of the people Richard talked about recently was Leif Davis, just maybe not looking as confident as he has in, I think, as he said, it's his toughest time in Ipswich shirt, because, he can't go forward as much. He's got to be a bit more defensive, and he kind of, that part of his game that offensively that we really like seems to have been nullified a bit. Him and any other players you think you've kind of seen a dip in form recently, maybe confidence as well as performance?
I mean, I hate to say it, but probably Morsey, to be honest. I know he's probably been out a little bit, but I think, he's still Mr. Reliable, of course he is, but I think this huge step up you can tell it's had its toll on a couple of players, and it's really starting to tell in some games now, where, like you say, the confidence has clearly been knocked. They're not as attack-minded, they're not as positive. So I would maybe Morsey, and I would agree with Davis as well. It's because we was talking the first couple of months, we were still saying he's going to be a shout for England. I can't see that now. Like he's nowhere near it now, because who's him at Newcastle? Lewis Hall looks a really good player, and I wouldn't say Davis is on his level right now. So it's a shame, but I'm sure he can turn it around.
Yeah, absolutely. I think again, I don't want to be talking about this too much, but one of the few good things about where we are in the league right now and how certain players are performing, like if we do go down, and these guys who we may have expected to leave us come the end of the season, given your Davises, but considering recent performances, they may not. We're gonna have a cracking team next season, apart from Talat maybe. It'd be exciting to see one. Anyway, is not if we want to focus. It's not something we want to focus on right now, and hopefully we won't have to focus on it come August, September. We're going to take our first break. When we come back, we're going to look at our opponents, Manchester United.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements, designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
And we are back here on the second part of today's show. We looked back there just on Town's recent form and results, but now we're going to look ahead. Every game is a chance to start fresh, and that is the case this Wednesday at Old Trafford against Manchester United. Aside, 10, 12 years ago, it was the most intimidating place to play in the country, maybe even the world. Partly down due to the great players and the pitch, but mostly, I think, especially in the latter stages, due to the brilliance of Sir Alex Ferguson. Those days are gone now, and whilst there have been a few cup wins here and there, they're obviously not where we want to be, that's for sure. But just, I've got a lot of things to ask about you United-wise. James, me and you, I mean, up until recently, both of us were based in Manchester. You are still there. We very much have like a boots on the ground sort of feel about how the city feels about them as a club. But just looking at their recent form, I think they've won 1 out of their last 6 home league games. Obviously, we drew 1-1 against them with Amram's first game back in November, I believe, which, yes, we conceded an early goal, but I thought predominantly it was a 50-50 game with us having the better chances as the game went on. What's your thoughts on United this season? Obviously, Amram's kind of blamed it on not having a pre-season, which I think is fairly justified. But that's also the rinse and repeat of most managerial changes at Old Trafford these days, where they come in mid-season, then they say, "Oh, give me a pre-season, then I'll be right as rain," and it's still not worked yet. Is he the issue, or is it still the players?
Honestly, I'm at a complete. I don't even know what to say about United anymore because, like you say, being based in Manchester, my best mate's a United fan as well, and like I don't even think they can see a way out at the minute because they keep doing these different changes, like even like from the owners. Do you know what I mean? This new Ineos regime and whatever this Jim Ratcliffe's doing, it doesn't seem to be sitting well with anybody. So I think it's more than that. It's so deep rooted in the club at the minute. I don't know what they're going to do. I just can't see how it's going to turn around for them at the minute. I mean, Amorim, he obviously, I think he does. He needs to have at least a full season, I think, or at least the start of a season, to see what he can do maybe in the summer transfer window, see what he can do with these players. Because obviously he's got a lot to ship out. He wants to, clearly. Is he the problem? I don't think so, because it seems to be every sort of manager is struggling. No one can seem to have a good sort of run. Mourinho did all right back in the day. Obviously, Ollie didn't do too bad, but I think he got a little bit more time just because he was a bit of a legend. But I don't know. I think Amorim's going to do okay. I think he could be the man to do it because he's clearly a good manager. It just seems to be a Man United curse at the minute. But yeah, I hope he doesn't start doing it on Wednesday. Well, tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow. But yeah, I don't know what they're going to do. I think they're a team very, very much in trouble.
I think obviously where they are right now is not really sort of reflective of what many fans in and out of the club expect them to be. I think it's also the incredible run they had. Also, you forget when Fergie came in, it was 7 years, I think, until he won his first league title. So it wasn't a instantaneous thing. Obviously, that's a different era where managers were given a lot more time. But what he then went to achieve after that was I don't think any club can really ever expect to have that sort of run again, really. And that's kind of a blessing and a curse, really, isn't it? Because obviously you've got this fantastic history to look back on as Manchester United do. But, that's kind of where they expect to be, is winning titles, challenging every single year. And I don't think it's really fair on any person to come into a club and have that expected on. Like, yes, Man City have had a decent run the past, 5-6 years almost, albeit a decade. But even that's not close to what United achieved for 25, and they're not going to. Pep's not going to last for another 15 or so years. It's just not going to happen. So, it's a ridiculous thing, I think, to try and compare how they were really to what they wanted to be like. But I think for them, it's just they wanted to be challenging again. It's a weird one of United as well, because I remember, obviously you probably remember as well, but growing up when they were the best team, and you'd want them to lose week in, week out. City started to emerge in 11-12. Yes, you may have a moral standpoint on how they managed to emerge financially, but that 11-12 season when they were going back and forth and City did win the league for the first time, everyone was kind of rooting on City, not just because of the amazing way they won it, but everyone was it was something different.
Yeah, change.
I remember going to the FA Cup final last season. My head was the other way around completely, where I wanted United to win. I mean, it was just to give myself some allegiance in a game I didn't really care about, but you're at a point now where you want United to win a trophy because City always win it. It's weird in sport how that can change, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
But, with the game, one more game focus question here for Wednesday, James. Like I said, their home form has been torrid. We've been better away from home this season, that's for sure. Do you see this as a chance to potentially pick up all three, or definitely a point, considering how they fared and how we've been on the road?
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think I think this is the perfect time for us, how we're playing at the minute, to play United with how they're playing at the minute. Because, like you say, we've been worse at home, we've been better away, and they have not been good at the minute, at home at all. So I don't see why we can't go and get something. I'm not saying the 3 points, because I might be biting off a bit more than we can chew, but yeah, we can actually go and get something. I'm sure we can.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. Are there any players? I think we'll start on the sort of the negative side of things. Let's try and lambast our opponents a bit more. But are there parts of the field you think we can exploit? Like looking at their defence, obviously Delap's against them on paper. I think De Ligt and Maguire could be a good pairing if they're up for it. But they are a bit flaky at times as well, aren't they?
Definitely, I think just go at the defence. I really do, because at times they're all over the place. So just attack them, just run at them. Whoever we've got on out, whoever may start on the wings, just run at them. If Amari's playing, hopefully he does play. Because he can carry the ball so well, and I think he'll do well because he did that against them in the first game, and obviously scored a pretty good goal. So I think he can do that again. Yeah, just attack them.
United as well. They're on course to. I mean, it seems like a record they break every year. Probably a record they don't want to break every year. It's their worst ever Premier League finish, and I don't see, because I think last season they finished 8th, which is their worst ever finish. Currently 15th, and they're 12 points off that spot with that Villa currently occupies. I don't see them like usurping that, so it will be their worst ever finish. Do you think with them it is just a case of like, if you were a fan of this team, like you said, your best mate's a fan of United, would you be happy with just sort of waiting until the end of the season? Because obviously they're at a point now where they're not going to get relegated, they're not going to challenge for Europe. Do you just want to see out this season? And that can probably benefit us as well, right? We're playing a team now who really has nothing much to play for domestically. Obviously they've got Europa League still against Sociedad in a week or so, but I think domestically it's a good chance to play them because, what are they playing for, really, apart from trying to hopefully get in the manager's good books?
Yeah. No, I think, yeah. I'd have to agree, mate, to be honest, because if I was a United fan, what else could I, apart from, obviously they're still in Europa, but for me, that would be a weird thing of, would you want to prioritise that now? Because they're not going to get anywhere in the league. I can't see it. So do you prioritise Europe to get into Europe again? I mean, because that would be their only way to win that, I guess. And yeah, I don't know. So I think domestically, I'd just be just waiting to see out the end of the season. Hopefully some players put in good performances, the youngsters, because they've got a lot of youngsters coming through now because of the injuries. So I think, just try and get excited about a future prospect. What else can you do?
That again, I mean, this is the thing of United, though. But you just saying that, it makes you think it's just the United model. It's another United sort of model we've seen the past 10 years, where, in terms of not just the manager carousel, but there's one player every year, young player, where fans get excited and it kind of distracts them from their problems.
Yeah.
Where it was like, whether it's the rise of like Garnacho or Kobe Mainu or Rashford years ago, or Dalot, or who's that young lad on the wing they got from Elche who played against Everton. He had a decent performance on the weekend as well. But it's just another aspect of United, I think, with clubs where they just it can distract you from what's going on the field. I mean, they drew 2-2 against Everton on the weekend. I think they're one of the few teams in the bottom half to not get a win alongside us, obviously. But that was obviously a tough game for them. So here's hoping it can be a difficult game for them. Like I said, they've been really poor at home this season. I think, yes, they've only won one of their last 6 home Premier League games, but their last 3 home Premier League wins were against Everton, Leicester, and Southampton. So we're very much a team they like to play, but those games were not easy. So I'm fairly certain we'll give them a good game.
Yeah.
We're going to look at the town side of things coming up next. We'll take our final break of the show and we'll talk all things Ipswich.
Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr.
And we are back on the Daily Ipswich for the final part of today's show, previewing Town's trip to Old Trafford against Manchester United. James, the one thing I've sort of found myself questioning all year with Town, and it seems to be a weekly occurrence now, I don't know about you, and it's whether it's 5 or 4 at the back. And I'm still kind of perplexed as to what we're going to do. This past weekend against Spurs, it was 4. But I think a lot of us, considering how the game went defensively, 5 maybe back in the question again. Where are you at with that, with the formation?
I mean, like you say, it's which one's it going to be? But I honestly, I think he should do 5 against United, especially just seeing how, like you say, how Spurs went. And we don't need to cover that too much, obviously. We all know how that was. So I think, he's got to go to the 5, I think, away at United. Because we look better, I think, in a 5 at the back. I do.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think one of the things with this formation as well, against certain teams like United, because we've made the point of you can have 4 because we need to go on the offensive, and we said that in the weeks prior, and especially in the build up to Tottenham. But it has worked, I think, on more occasions than none. Yeah, we got spanked by Liverpool and City in that one, but I think for the most part it's been all right. Because you look at United, the way they line up, it's like I think they're very good at sort of just, especially against the teams lower in the table. Not as many teams lower than them in the table, but they are comfortable just passing it around the 6 and occasionally the 10 and not providing much threat. And I think absorbing that pressure against the side who aren't that great in front of goal really, really can enable us to do a decent counter-attack. Their pace at the back isn't that great either. Where are you at with personnel defensively? Because we've seen in recent weeks of Morsey being either injured or on the bench, Dara O'Shea becoming captain. And obviously we've had our fair bit to say about him at the start of the season. Definitely improved as the weeks gone on. I mean, Richard touched on personnel being the issue defensively throughout the season and lack of sort of chemistry and cohesion. You know, the goalkeeper's changed 3 times.
Yeah.
We brought in 3 centre-backs. Injuries have played a factor. Like, I'm not really expecting us to do a predicted lineup today because of the changes and it being so close to Saturday's game. But do you think that's an issue? And I think one of the reasons why we've struggled defensively this season, not just because it's a step up in league, but in having that lack of consistency in defenders, because it's not been the same one, or it's hard to predict the same back 4 or 5, isn't it?
Yeah, and like we've all said, like you and the lads as well, it's the same thing. It's you just don't know who's going to be playing, so that can't be easy for the players either. Like I know it's difficult with injuries and everything, picking them up, but if you're not getting a solid partnership sort of week in, week out, that's difficult to go into every game with, and I think it's starting to take its toll. Yeah, so it's a tricky one because you're not sure which one's going to play. You're not sure which one's fit because we seem to keep our injuries very close to home as well. We don't get a lot of information, I don't think, too often. Sometimes it's when we look at the lineup, don't we? Sometimes we think, I thought he was going to play, but he's on the bench and this and that. So it's a tough one, but I just hope he finds the right ones and we can kick on from Wednesday. Yeah.
Do you like the current pairing of what seems to be Greaves and O'Shea? Do you think that is our best?
I think it seems to be because they're both. I mean, O'Shea's certainly stepped up. I think he's better than he was when we signed him, which is good. I'm happy about that because he is actually a good player. Greaves, I do like Greaves, but I'll be honest, he's kind of done the opposite for me. I thought he was going to kick on a lot more, but he seems to have regressed a little bit, and I can't put my finger on why. Maybe it's the couple of injuries that he's picked up here and there. He's trying to obviously cement his position in the team, but I don't know. He seems to make too many mistakes for my liking, but is it O'Shea and Burgess? I like Burgess, I do, but I don't know. I'm not sure which one is the strongest for me. It probably is Greaves and O'Shea, but I'm not too sure.
I think for me, Greaves, like you said, I think he's very much kind of flip-flopped his form this season. I think the thing I notice of him when he plays, I think defensively he's pretty sound, like blocks and stuff like that, and positioning I think is better. If you in comparison to O'Shea's positioning on the weekend for some of the goals, like Richard spoke about, how O'Shea was doing near Godfrey when he should have been at the front post for Spurs opener. But I think Greaves' positioning is really good, blocked a few shots as well on the weekend. But for me, it's his distribution and his sort of passing at the back, which, may not on paper be that essential for a defender or the definition of what you think would be essential for a defender. But I think at this day and age it is, and the pressure you have in the Premier League compared to the Championship is night and day. And I think he struggled a lot of that this season. And to be fair, that could be down due to his lack of game time in comparison to O'Shea, where they felt that sort of brunt, full pace of the Premier League at the start. And as the season's gone on, I think O'Shea's distribution and passing around the backs has improved a lot, whereas Greaves hasn't had that consistency to do that. Touching on like the defence as well, do you see? I'm not going to get in predicted lineups, but obviously we've got a short turnaround here. He was suspended against Spurs due to the red card against Villa. Do you expect to see Twanzebe back against his former side on Wednesday?
Yeah, I would assume so. We say it every time, but he is different class. Like Twanzebe is quality, and any game that he's available, I think he needs to be in the starting lineup. Yeah, he just makes us look a little bit more solid. I think he's a top player. He really is. I can't speak highly enough about him when he plays. He's top player. And he needs to play. Yeah, he needs to start.
I think with him, it's funny because we didn't have this sort of I certainly didn't. I don't know about you, but didn't have this sort of like opinion of him last season with him being like this top quality player. Do you think that's down to, because we've talked about a lot of individual brilliance and wanting to rely upon that this season, like your Amaris, and obviously Delap has proven one of those players you can rely on. With Twanzebe, and I'm going to include someone else in this, Connor Townsend. That's a strange thing to say, but they're two players who've had a bit of Premier League experience. And yes, Townsend's only had games few and far between. Twanzebe's had a lot more. And I'd say, like, those two especially, I can't really fault many performances, with the exception of maybe a suspension here and there this season. And, I think that if you look back a bit on our transfer policy this past year, those sort of players may have been the ones we should have relied upon more in terms of bringing in, rather than these sort of young guns from the Championship who could, maybe step up. And we should have maybe looked back on certain players who have already got a bit of Prem experience. We've seen from Enciso coming in as well. He looks really reliable because he's already used to the pace of the league. Do you think that's an area we should have maybe looked at? I'm not asking to look at individuals here, but that sort of player who's already got a bit of experience in the Premier League, rather than some young guy who's never played in the league and has to do the transition like the rest of the squad had to do.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you can tell in obviously most of our games this season, that's what is lacking. It's a little bit more experience in certain positions instead of, like you say, instead of these youngsters that have come from bigger clubs, I guess, or from the Championship, but had no Premier League sort of time at all. And you can tell, with Townsend, do you know what? He's been in the team. He's actually looked a decent player. He really has. And then, Twanzebe, different class. He's, and Phillips has been playing okay recently. And again, you can tell that because he knows what the Premier League is. And I think that's what we should have probably looked at. Yeah, I would agree with you, Tom, absolutely. Instead of the youngsters. I'm not saying they're doing a terrible job, but, maybe we could have done with a little bit more, experience, definitely.
It's a difficult balance as well, is it? Because if you get those sort of names who are used to Premier League football, there's usually an assumption if you go down, they're going to want to still play Premier League football. So you do have to kind of bring these players through who, heaven forbid you do go down, you kind of got players who are ready and comfortable and already in the right spot to play in the Championship. Just looking ahead to tomorrow's game, like I said, we won't go into a predicted lineup or anything from you, James, but just with it being, a short turnaround, do you expect to see some changes? I mean, I've got some names written down here. I'd maybe not necessarily like to see start, but could come back. Do you think maybe Morsey will come back into the starting 11 based on the turnaround, as well as just giving him a chance again? Because the midfield isn't as quick for United as Spurs, was it?
No, definitely not. I think Morsey will probably come back in. I mean, Kudus went off. Do we know anything about Kudus anyway? Because he did get subbed off, didn't he?
I mean, he gets subbed off like the 60th, 70th of every game, doesn't he?
But it just looked a bit of a dodgy one. It looked as if he'd maybe picked up a knock, so I'm not sure if he has or not. So fingers crossed. But I reckon Morsey will probably come into the team. I don't know if he'll change too much. Hopefully Twanzebe will be back as well, like we said earlier. Who do you think will sort of make Howell? Who do you hope? Well, I guess.
I think for me, it's Nathan Broadhead.
I agree. Actually, yeah.
I think I don't want to wax lyric about him too much and say like he's all the solutions to our problems. But whenever I see him come on, it's just like a, to use the words the kids say, an aura about him. It's just like there's something about him that like I feel a bit more comfortable when he's on the field, and I don't know if it's just because he's been there longer, and so I kind of give him a bit of the benefit of the doubt. But like in comparison to some of the performances we've seen, like Philogene was kind of a ghost on the weekend, and I don't know if that's because it was his first home game, but it was difficult for him. And I think we're at that point now where we need guys who are comfortable in playing this system and playing the style and playing for the shirt and all those sort of stuff, and he's a player that embodies that, and also who's really up for it. I think sometimes having players come off the bench and giving them a chance to start, they're usually sometimes a bit more motivated because they're not expecting to start and they're thinking ahead, I should be bloody starting every game, give me that one chance and I'll show it. And, United, again, this is a great opportunity. It's strange to say, isn't it, that United is a great opportunity to get something from because, they are, I think for many still one of the biggest clubs in the world, despite where they are on the table. So it's crazy to think that, but it really is. And I think Broadhead can do it. And another player, I mean, we mentioned Twanzebe coming back. I'm a bit, again, this is purely because of the time frame in between games, but I am a bit more, and this is to hopefully get the best out of Davis as well, I'm a bit more thinking maybe bring Burgess back as well. He played against United early in the season during that spell when Greaves was out, and it was fantastic. And I know, obviously, you do want consistency in the back as well, but if we revert to a 5, I'd rather have the pair. I'm not way of kicking Greaves out, but I'd rather have the trio of O'Shea, Greaves in the middle, Burgess on the left, because I think, or it could be Wolfie in Burgess' position, but someone who Davis is more familiar with to get the best out of him, and it gives him the chance to go forward more. I think that's the thing with a 5 as well. You can argue that you're just sitting back and relying, like bringing on pressure towards you, but then it does enable like to bring out the better qualities in certain players. Like I think Ben Johnson's a better right wing back than he is a right back. Davis is a better left wing back than he is like a left back. Then that's what the 5 does give you. So hopefully that's the case. But yeah, for me, I think that's that. The front 3. Do you see, like I said, Broadhead coming in? Do you see changes being made there? We saw Jack Clark start, which I was happy about at the start of the game. Struggled to get into the game. I don't think he had a poor performance, but it was difficult for him. Who do you see in the front 3 behind Delap in that game, or 2 if we go to a 5?
In fairness, Tom, I absolutely agree with you, mate. I think Broadhead should be given a start because, like you said, there's something about him. He just looks better on the ball. Yeah, he feels safer when he's on the ball than a Jack Clark at the minute. And I think obviously Delap's starting. There's no question. And then got to be I'd start Hutchinson again. Still, he's a bit of a bright spark in the last couple of games in horrible results. So that's all I can say, really. He's not been the most positive, but he's looked all right. So, I'd start him still.
I think with Hutchinson as well, if like history is anything to go by, this is like when this time last year was when he kind of turned up for us. So hopefully that's the case again.
Yeah.
Like, as I said at the top of the show, this time last year and in 2023, we were below where we ended up finishing in both leagues. So hopefully that's the case here as well. Before we go, can I get predicted scoreline from you, James?
You can. I'm going to go 2-1 Ipswich.
You're still going... Is that a heart over head prediction, or is it a bit of head considering it's United?
That's absolutely heart. I think realistically we can... I think it's going to be another 1-1 draw, I think. I think we'll get another point. Yeah, no,
I'm going to... My head's kind of outweighing my heart here. I'm going to go 1-1, I think, in this game. A point really well deserved. I mean, like I said, before we finish up now, these are the games really where it's crazy to say that we could get something from. And there's been a lot of games like that this season where we thought that would be the case, and they weren't. But considering how poor United have been this season, we hope that's the case. Wolves are at home, against Fulham, which Fulham had, I think, they lost against Palace at home, didn't they, in the week? So hopefully they're looking to get some points back as they're trying to chase Europe. But we are at the case now where we are relying on other teams to do us favours. It's been like that the past few weeks. But, 5 points behind now. If we win, Wolves lose, we're back to 2. We've got to play them again. It's a game-by-game basis. And obviously, we had the luxury right now of previewing a game rather than reviewing a game, where we can be a bit more optimistic. So we shall see how we feel after Wednesday night, that's for sure. But that's going to do it for today's show. James, thanks for joining me, mate.
Cheers, mate.
Join us tomorrow morning, where we're going to be joined by our colleagues at the Daily Manchester United as we preview the game ever more with our crossover episode. And then we'll also be jumping on late Wednesday night for an episode that will come up Thursday morning with a quick instant reaction to the game at Old Trafford as well. So make sure you're around for that. But that's going to do it for today's show. Thanks so much for joining. Whilst you're here, if you want to head over to the socials and give us all likes and follows and all that sort of stuff, give the pod a review on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get the podcast from. We'd really, really appreciate that as well. But thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you all next time.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.